Okay, class. So just to go over briefly what I want you to do for homework, what we want to do is basically to compare these metrics of variable importance for random forest and for artificial neural networks to give you some practice using these methods and to just basically to compare the performance of our two models. So we're once again going to be working with this wages data set. Okay, so a lot of this work you've already done last week because last week we set up all three models on this wage data set. Okay, once again, this is sort of the same data prep code. Okay, and I suggest that you guys do the random forest first. Okay, so start with a random forest model. Okay, fit a model to the data using the independent variables that I've described here. Assess the relative importance of these variables using the omission method. Assess the relative importance using the minimal depth method. If you don't remember how to do that, have a look at the previous week's assignment. And then finally, generate a partial dependence plot for these variables. Now, a note with the partial dependence plots, these plots are going to look a little bit diminutive, okay, compared to the partial dependence plots we have over here, because all of these independent variables here are actually categorical or dummy variables, okay? So you're not going to have a whole range, okay? For example, for bedrooms, obviously that's a whole range. It can be anything from 1 to 9, okay? For something like south, this is just a dummy variable saying whether or not you're in the south. So you're only going to see 2 points here on the x-axis corresponding to being in the south versus not being in the south. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so then based on those, okay, based on what you find there, I want you to make an assessment of what would you say are the 3 most important variables in determining wage, at least according to our random forest model. Okay. Subsequently, I want you guys to fit a artificial neural network to the data. Okay, use the same neural network that we were doing before. Okay, 2 hidden layers with 10 neurons each. And then assess the relative importance of these variables using the methods that we've just discussed. So 1, do it using the omission-based method. Okay, you might want to create a little table to just keep track of how the accuracy changed for each variable. Okay, if you want to try doing something a little bit more advanced, you can try using a loop rather than sort of adjusting each variable by hand. Okay, and if you're not sure how to do that, if you're stuck on how to do that, then you can come see me in office hours. Then I want you to assess the relative importance of these variables using Olden's method, as we just discussed. And then finally, I want you to generate a partial dependence plot for these variables and have a look to see if those plots differ from what you found with the random forest model. Now, as a note, in order to interpret these partial dependence plot, you might want to unscale the dependent variable so they're back to their original value. Okay, so in other words, your wage variable, okay, once you've done the data prep with the artificial neural network, this wage variable is going to be scaled down to between 0 and 1. So you might see that somebody's wage, you know, if they're in the South is 0.4, and if they're not in the South, maybe it's 0.5. And you might be wondering, well, what does that mean? What does 0.5 actually correspond to? Well, if you want to know that, simply just run this code here. This will scale the wages back to their original values, and then you can run your command again. Okay. And then finally, in question number 5, I simply want you to compare what you got with the artificial neural network with what you got with the random forest. Do these 2 models agree in terms of which variable seems to be the most important, or which variables, in the plural, seem to be the most important in determining wage? Or do they say, tell a somewhat different result? Okay. Okay. So good luck with all of that. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, please come see me in office hours. And like I said, on Thursday we'll talk about the project.